Did you try that new restaurant?
Your conference recording has stopped.
Yeah, I went there yesterday. Man, the food was off the chain. And the chicken was like, how did he say
this
that?
This conference is being recorded.
Whoa.
To die for.
To die for, really? I'm saying, I mean, the chicken was good. You know what I'm saying?
Can't you just say the chicken was good? Does it have to be to die for? That sounds a little effeminate.
Did you wear skinny jeans while you were eating the chicken? Nah, I'm saying, I saying it was good, man. Was it rainbow chicken? Hold up, man. I just wear the chicken was good.
With a sparkly buckle on it like you.
Was the server doing a sissy bounce? Man, I'm just saying, the chicken was good. Look, man, the chicken was good, no homo.
No, it's the time has passed for no homo.
You're supposed to say it before, brother.
It's like a disclaimer.
I can't say, I just said no homo, though. There's no regulation on when you can say no homo. What are y'all, like a regulatory governing body over no homo or something?
Brothers and sisters, don't get caught up. Don't let the homosexual poltergeist pull you in. We are the final front in the war against white sex. Stand strong. This African service announcement has been brought to you by One Horizon Radio.
One Horizon. You gotta love it. No homo.
Every limb in this war I'm in, would you round them up and piece me back together again? Say a prayer over me as my soul ascends. Ask God to forgive me for my sins. Sorta like a Tsar in a set, a rule back in Egypt. Would I return as a mythical leader? Would the rebels die with me in the name of freedom? Trapped in the bowels of this barbaric region. Gotta fight until the children stop killing one another. Cops killing bunches of us, that's enough of us. Men with the single mothers, brothers, single mothers, let the men raise warriors. Jettison the fear, we will bear casualties of war. If we don't fight, there'll be even more. There'll be dark nights when you might lose a husband, might lose a son. It's a sacrifice for black life.
All right. Good evening, everyone. This is A Taste of the Southwest. I'm Sister YaaYaa, and we're doing a little something different. So the show is going to be now every other Sunday. So, of course, we're on this Sunday, and we'll be off next Sunday and on again the following Sunday, so everybody knows what's going on with that. But it's really good to be back, and you know, life throws things your way, and I kind of wanted to do a show today about that, because we can do all kinds of shows about when things are great and concepts and all these wonderful plans we have, but we have low times. And so, you know, today's show is about what to do during those times, and the topic is wanting change bad enough to change. So it's basically, you know, we all find ourselves down or not as up as we'd like to be, not as on as usual. So I wanted to address that and see what can we do for ourselves, for each other during those times, and what's the proper response to that. And to kind of jump in, we have to start with a healthy an African understanding of life and the process and what that means, because we don't sometimes realize the influences on things that we think. So a healthy understanding is that life is a process where life leads to death, which leads to life. Now, in our linear understanding that we've been given, obviously you're born, you live, you die, that's it. That's the end of your existence, that's the time that you had, it's over now. But the actual African understanding is life is a series, it's a cycle of living dying to a certain phase of your life in order to live into a new phase in your life. And it's just the cycle continues, and that's just the way that it works. So we get into as we live our lives, we find ourselves in good times. The good times are basically, just in general for all of us, my definition, it's when you're living free to be healthy and you. So that's what we will define that as the good times. Okay, you're living free to be healthy and you. So you're doing everything you got to do. Everything pretty much flows. You're making your money. You know where your next meal is going to come from. You feel stable and secure. You have healthy relationships. They're growing. People can relate to you. You can relate to other people. You can work through conflicts. Whatever the case may be, life is flowing naturally and normally. So sometimes, though, that's just not the case. We're not living free. We have obstacles. Something jumps in the way to where it's not flowing as easily as it could. We're not able to make money. We can't relate to people. We feel alienated. They can't relate to us. There's a break somewhere. We're running into brick walls. We don't have a healthy understanding. And we'll get into this later on, but you can be debated. Even just who we're talking about here and your understanding of even yourself becomes a problem. So when we run into those problems, sometimes we fall into a rut. We get tired. We become discouraged. We feel overwhelmed. We get lonely. Sometimes we would describe ourselves as depressed. We're not productive. Something's wrong, and there's a need for a change. So we can get back to the free flow, living free to be healthy, and you. So automatically, though, we have some responses to these downtimes. They just pop up. They're just things that we do. And some of those things, talking to other people, some of us sleep heavily. We sleep through hard times, or we sleep a lot during those times. And we begin to hide and escape. And if you remember, if you listened to the addiction show that we did, the part 1 really was heavy on to what causes our addictions and the level of escaping. Well, we're using our addictions to escape. Or I was speaking with Brother Laila, who is with me tonight, to co-host, if you will. So we'll be dialoguing throughout the show. But one way that he described addictions is you do it to not feel yourself. You're trying not to feel yourself at some moment, or you're trying to not think at a certain time. So you can do this addictive thing to try and get away. So, okay, life isn't flowing freely. We're in a rut. We respond with these not so healthy things, this escaping, these addictions. So now you see that you're down. You listen to the addiction show. You can at least see you have a problem in your way. How do you try to get up? You're not doing what's making you happy. You're not doing what you're made to do during this time. You have an obstacle. Something's in the way. You're running into a brick wall. You need some motivation. A lot of times, that's just what it feels like. If I could just have this motivation, I could just jump up and I can just do better. I can do different. I can do me. I can do what I'm supposed to be doing. And that comes from, we all need a mission and a purpose in life. And to not get deep into what a particular individual, if you will, mission is, again, what we all seek at least is to be able to live free, to be healthy, and who we are. That's at least everyone's purpose in life. So I kind of wanted to ask you, Brother Laila, what do you see when you're trying to get up and when you need some motivation, you don't feel like you're living free to be healthy in you? What are your thoughts?
So, and good evening, family. Good evening, Sister YaaYaa.
Good evening.
So yeah, a lot of times in excuse my voice here a little bit. It's a little hoarse, but a lot of times when you're talking about what do I do when I'm down, or what do I do in response to how I'm feeling a certain thing, and this is the general I, or anytime I notice when I'm speaking to folks, people around me, is I hear the I we have to consider. There are a lot more, as I like to think about it, as participants in a certain situation when you're talking about I. So, in answer to what you actually, what do I actually do? Well, I have to be able to see that there's more at play than just the true self. A lot of times when we come up, we forget these things, or we lose track of them and getting caught up in our everyday. But what I've noticed in talking to people, and also in living my own life, just in a day-to-day, go to work, come home, is that I lose track of so many things that I'll speak inside myself as I. It's just stuff that has been told to me as being me, or the fictional self, as you might say. So I have to really break down what it is that I am feeling in order to decide whether a decision, a plan of action is going to be taken based on the true self, or whether this is something that might be coming from the fictional self, which is saying that, oh, well, I'm not strong enough to do that in this day, and that's definitely the fictional self, because you're definitely acting from a point where you've got maybe other things going on in your mind, maybe old thoughts of what parents might have said to you, going on in your mind, or bad experiences with a relationship. And that's really what's talking at that moment, and that's not the true self. So you're not free to be healthy, and you're being impacted. Your life is being impacted. Your judgment is being impacted by this fictional self. So a lot of times you have to step back and acknowledge that there's something to sort out from who you're calling you. And, excuse me. And when you can do that, it's at that time that you can reevaluate what is valuable to you. You can reevaluate the things that are really at the core of your life important. And sometimes it's that's all you might need to do, is just step back and sort out what you're experiencing as a stress factor, possibly, or a point of depression.
Okay. I think that's interesting. You talk about the true self and your fictional self. And so let me just make sure I'm getting it straight. You're saying that the fictional self is just that voice you hear inside your head, but it's not coming from the actual you. It's coming from maybe things people told you as a kid, or experiences you had, or faulty things you learned in school. Or, it's something, but it's not really you. You think it's you because you're calling it a self, right?
Yes.
But it's just not really what's coming from the healthy you. And sometimes maybe we don't even know what that is.
What that is, right. Because a lot of times, and I use the word self kind of, I don't know, I should preface it with just the understanding that when we talk to each other, when we talk to anyone who we're in a relationship with, we kind of tend to take all of the accountability on ourselves to say, well, I'm doing this, or I can't get out of bed, or these things are who I am. But at some point, I'll put it this way: in starting the process of reaffirmation with yourself and with Dr. Marcus, is one of the earlier concepts is being able to sort out the things in your life that aren't truly you. And a lot of that's not something that we're taught to do in the education system that might bring us through from age 5 up until age 18, where we're out in the world living our life. So there's a lot of lessons learned in that time, and through those lessons, we begin to start feeling ourselves and start believing that these things that we're learning are us. So we then start reaffirming possibly some bad habits, possibly some unhealthy habits. We reaffirm that that's me, that's how I do it. But we're not. So then, in that point, we're not able to see the contrast of whatever is trying to possibly take my life away, or shorten my life, or make my life less healthy. That has to be something other than the self that is here as part of life to live, because that's going against life. If that clears it up a little bit.
It does, especially when you say it takes some work, like in Reafricanization. It just takes time to learn how to sort out what's you as opposed to what's just being reaffirmed
from old stuff.
Exactly. I really think that's a good point, because a lot of times I know when I'm down, if I'm, not performing like I should in whatever arena, I'm not, on top of my reading, or I'm not, I'm failing in some of my social relationships, or, I'm letting the ball drop somewhere. I say it's me. What's wrong with me? I know better than this. How come I'm not doing better? And the biggest one is what's wrong with me. And I think that really speaks to what you're saying. You're saying it's not me. Reafricanization says it's not you. It's this outside, this Eurocentric understanding that has been imputed, that's been, that we've been bombarded with. We're beginning to take on things that are not us, but we think they are. And we think that they're good for us because everybody else around us does the same thing. This is not an abnormal thing for people. We just don't realize how much we try to take responsibility for. And I think that that's a great starting point for this discussion. Is sometimes we're down and we keep ourselves down further because we're making ourselves responsible for things that are not really us. I think that's a good point. And just let me say, always in this show, it's important to hear from everybody. One or two people's perspective doesn't necessarily show the whole picture. So if you're listening online or you'd like to weigh in on the conversation, and we really want to know, what do you do during these times? We have to help each other because we all get to this point. What do you do during these times when you're low, you're depressed, you feel like you're alone or you're isolating yourself, whatever the case may be. If you want to weigh in, and we really hope that you do, and we encourage you to call in, the number to do that is 760-569-7676, access code 948-656#. Again, 760-569-7676, access code 948-656#. And help us out, because I'm all about what's practical, what's down to earth. What can you actually do to get out of this? And there are things that I don't know. There are things Brother Leila doesn't know. So we really want to hear from everybody because I don't hear too much talk about this, and it really would help, I think, other people.
And if I could just jump in there also and just say that, that you make a good point about the importance of hearing from other people. Mm-hmm. A lot of times, and just in this, in your everyday walk through life, sometimes what you need to do is reach out to a person to speak to them. And what's actually happening, I believe, during that time is the part of you and the part of this other person that are connected with all of life are sorting things out. Like what I believe is there's the greater energy when there's two people talking about things. You know, and this just comes to mind as one of those things that, okay, well, I would, you know, you kind of get a lot more when you're speaking to someone else about things. So we absolutely would want to hear from other people so that we're aligned with a larger part of life, so to speak, if you will.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. And kind of along that same line, too, one of the things you can try to do, I think, and we really have to pay attention. We're so busy and we're so, you know, we're so smart and we're so intellectual, and, you know, we just really break down some really deep concepts. We forget some of the things that are needs that we have as just people. And one of the things, sometimes, it depends on, you know, your stage in life. If you're married, you may not have this issue. But sometimes you're working so hard. You're talking to people so much. You're giving so much of yourself. Making sure so much is taken care of and checking on your family and keeping up with your friends that we forget it's a need. We have a biological, if you will, need for affection, to get attention from another person. I hate to say the word and not sound extra deep right now, but sometimes you just have to flirt a little bit. I'm not saying go far. I'm not going to be the one to say sex is a biological need. You know, to be healthy, you have to be having sex at some, you know, algorithmic interval in your life. You know, I'm not going to say that. But I do know for a fact that you have to have a connection with the person. And, you know, it's good to know somebody likes you, or what was the word you used, Brother Layla? Affirmation. To just be affirmed, to feel affirmed by somebody. That's a part of work, too. You have to take care of yourself, and that's a big part that sometimes we may forget. So I think that would be one thing to try. Like I said, don't go overboard. You're not just trying to just get some draws. You know what I'm saying? Keep it funky. This is not the end result we're looking for necessarily, but just to connect with somebody, to be able to flirt and get some attention. That's important. It helps you to not feel so lonely in all the work that we find ourselves caught up doing.
Yeah, you know, and I believe I hear Dr. Marcus talking about that a lot, as being affirmed by the complementary sex. Of course, we're talking about in the healthy African way. We're talking about the opposite sex and the need for this.
Right.
And as I was listening to you talk, I was realizing that in the society that we're living in, we're the reason sometimes I find myself almost forgetting that I need that, or getting caught up and not paying enough attention to it, is because the energy in the society is so driven to separate us out, because this is Yurugu society,
right,
spiritually,
right,
that we're in, that's a constant force on us, separating each individual out into these, again, objects from, maybe if you would, from Dr. Marimba's Yurugu,
right,
into these objects that can be controlled. And that's becoming effective because as I talk to people that I know personally in my maybe past life, I'm hearing that we are so caught up, but not even realizing that how that's happening.
Okay.
But that it's happening from the spirit of the society that says we're each individual.
And when you say that too, the separating out of people into objects, that will lead you, if you have a deficit in attention and affection, having that mindset, which so many of us do just from being, as I've talked about before, over-sexualized as children and following what the society says, when you make people objects, you need attention, that's going to end up in sex. Because you're not seeing the other person as a compliment. You don't see them as a person. You see them as a thing to give you what you want.
Right.
How can I use this thing, this body, to make me feel better? And when you reduce a person out of their being a soul, being a spirit, having a mind, something to say, and you just want them to shut up, do what I want you to do, that's leading you in all the wrong direction. And then at the end of the day, that void is not ever filled. You become a more voided out version of Yurugu, really.
That's very true.
When you operate as they do. So yeah, I just, like I said, definitely call in if you have some input and some insight into what you do when you find yourself down. Again, let me give the number one more time, 760-569-7676, access code 948-656#. Did you have something, Brother Layla, you wanted to say right there?
So, not right now.
Okay.
Right now. Maybe we'll hear from someone calling.
Okay. Sister Shabazz.
Yes, ma'am.
How are you this evening?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. We're both kind of over here struggling, dueling, coughing, and battling sore throats. But
understood.
I wanted to know, hopefully we're coming across clearly to everybody.
Yes, ma'am.
I wanted to know if anybody is on the line, possibly if anyone's called in that wants to share anything right now before we go any further.
Okay, let's check and see here. 0222, you're live on War on the Horizon. 0222, you're live on War on the Horizon. All right, I imagine that they are just listening in. 8866, you're live on War on the Horizon. 8866. All right. And my brother, how you doing tonight?
True Black Redemption, how you doing?
We're good.
All right. Weighing in on the program. Peace, brother Layla.
Layla, peace, brother. Thank you. What's up?
True. Just wanted to let you know that I had heard the reprogramming of the re-Africanization. It was a very good program. Better late than never, brother. Black power.
Absolutely.
As for the topic of tonight's program, when you're feeling down, being out here, in this movement and just being conscious and just feeling down altogether, it is a white supremacy system that we under. And when you have an African mind, you tend to see the things more clearly, and sometimes it weighs in so much on you that it then again it goes into an individualistic type view of how you deal with issues. Me personally, I'm the type of person, I deny myself where I tell myself, man, get the F out of here, and just keep going on and just keep moving with it, as opposed to feeling down and this and that. Because sometimes within this, when you rework yourself, and get back your African mind, if you lose yourself in that process and you come to reclaim yourself, you tend to find yourself a little bit more strong and a little bit more keen and perceptive to what's going on, It's just a matter of long, you know what I mean? It's a formidable foe, and it's taken us for 400 years to do what they have done, and it wasn't something just done overnight. Our time span in our life that we're living is a very short time span, from birth to 80 years old, 100, whatever it may be. But they've been doing it for centuries on over, and each successive generation that comes after us have to be rebirthed, if they're not born into the consciousness of self. And that's just my input.
All right. Well, thank you, brother. And you're very right. I relate heavily with you on the idea of being involved with this on a day-to-day, and it can get you down. And that you said 400 years, and from my understanding of history, I'm sure talking about maybe possibly a history of this country. But we also got to understand when we're dealing with ancestry, we're dealing with thousands of years. We're dealing with even heavier history where Yurugu's been building this energy. So just kind of to add to what you were saying, not add like you left something out, but just to kind of meet you there in the conversation and say that, yeah, the history of it says that, this Yurugu spirit's been building for thousands of years, and we're sitting now at a place in reality where it's heavy. But thank you for calling in. Thank you for your input. We appreciate that.
Sure, Black Power.
All right.
Black Power. And also, I think the brother also made a very good point that we all do deal with our issues differently, just as people, just the way we came up or the region we grew up in, what our parents did, what we saw. So that is a very good point. And I think we're going to kind of touch on that a little bit as we go a little bit farther into the show, how to deal with the issue. Along with previous shows, too, other practical steps we've given for how you can deal with some things that may come up. One thing, though, that I did want to mention, first, Sister Shabazz, were there any other callers right now?
That's all the callers for now, so anybody else that wants to call in, now would be a good time to do it.
No. Okay. But I didn't want to cut across anybody. If you have anything else to, like she said and like I said, definitely call in. But one thing I wanted to say, it's good not to do. When you're down, you find yourself down, don't lie to yourself. And this is something I can admit that I've done and still do. Sometimes I'll catch myself and say, oh, I'm good, or I see I have a problem. I'll just pretend I don't and step out and act as though I'm still okay. Sometimes you can deny that you're down altogether, and that's not necessarily a good thing. And even this lying and denial, you're kind of trying to be somewhere that you're not. You're trying to pretend like life is all health and there are no obstacles or there's no obstacle that could actually get in your way. And sometimes that's just the fact of the matter. We run into things and we don't know how to get around them at first. And sometimes it takes a good amount of time before we get a handle on it. So I think the first thing is to resist lying to yourself that there's a problem at all. Like I exposed about myself the last show, I am not ready to run right into battle today. I'm not. I wish I was. I wish I was made of steel and all my issues and my fears weren't there. But the fact of the matter is that they are right now. Will that always be the case? I hope not, and I don't think so. But the truth of my reality right now is I am not ready to go into battle. I can come up with a great argument and convince both you and I that I am. And I can be very convincing. But that doesn't change anything. And when you do lie about where you are and the fact that you're in a rut or something's gotten in the way or there's a problem you can't solve right now, it doesn't change the fact that you're not moving forward. Lie and deny all you like, you're still not going anywhere. So I think that's a very an important thing to remember for like a perfectionist like me. Or I don't even know what you want to call it, what you want to label it as. It's just being a liar at the end of the day. I don't have this problem. I'm ready to go. Everything's cool. And even another point that I wanted to make is it's okay to be down even sometimes. It's natural in a lot of cases. One, this is, excuse me for going back into my days when I used to attend church, but there was a lesson that this pastor was giving in this talk he was giving about momentum. And what he did was he called a brother up onto the stage, and he said, "Brother, I want you to jump. I want you to stand in one place. I want you to just jump up as high as you can jump." So he told him, I want you to move higher, like jump high. So as the brother was about to jump, and if you think about when you have to jump, when you go to jump, you have to first kneel down and then spring up. So he stopped the guy, the man on the stage. He was like, wait, what's all this kneeling about? I told you, just jump up. And there's no possible way for a person to do it if you don't first kneel down a little bit. And another example of like that momentum that I thought about, it's like if you have a rubber band and you're about to flick it at somebody, you take the rubber band, you put it around your finger, and you take your other finger and you pull back on it. You pull back and you pull back, and then you let it go, and then it flicks real far. That pulling back process, the rubber band isn't going anywhere. You're not going anywhere. When you kneel down, you're not jumping yet. But there's always a point before you move and progress forward from a place that you're at where you have to gain momentum. You're not moving forward. In fact, the rubber band is actually moving backward. When you're about to jump, to go higher, you have to go even lower. So it's not a bad thing to be in a rut all the time. You know, it feels bad. It hurts. You're down on yourself because you think it's you, as Brother Layla was saying. You wish you were somewhere else. You see other people and they look like they're somewhere farther than you. But the fact of the matter is you have to kind of hang in there and be where you are. Don't deny it. Don't lie about it. Cry, whatever you got to do. But be there so that you can gain the momentum. One thing, like I have natural hair. In my being down or being depressed and feeling bad about myself or not being where I should be or reading what I should be reading and when I should be reading it, I haven't gone and said, you know, I'm just going to get a relaxer. So I haven't lost my whole self completely. I haven't let go of everything and decided, you know what, I'm going to bleach my skin, that's it. You know, you haven't gone back as far as you think, as far as it feels sometimes. But just hang in there with the low times, and you will gain momentum to move forward. Another point is you get sick. Like, okay, I have a problem with bad eating habits right now. I know all about good eating habits. That's not my problem. My problem is I still like to eat sweet. And so I have done that to the point to where other things I have not been keeping up with, I got sick. I caught a cold. I don't know if you know much about colds, but eating a lot of sugar doesn't help. Eat as much natural stuff as possible. And the point is your body lets you know when you get sick, okay, it's time to slow down. It's time to rest and let your body be restored. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's a part of life. And just like death is a part of life. It doesn't feel good, but there's no way you can live without it. Like I said, life is a series of cycles. Life leads to death, leads to life. And Sister Shabazz, can we check and see if there's somebody else that wants to add anything before we go any farther?
Sure. 4938, you're live on War on the Horizon.
Yes, listening.
Good evening.
Well, we thank you, brother, for listening.
All right.
Yeah, so I just wanted to point that out. And one last thing. When you're in a down place, it's important to figure out what's got you where you are. Like the brother was saying, how you deal with issues as a person. And we talk about all the time, sorting things out, thinking about things. What's got you down? What all are you feeling right now? What do you feel you could be doing? What are you experiencing? What needs to change in you? Because there's something going on with you that's holding you in a down position. And I'm talking when you're hurting yourself knowingly. And this is what it is, especially with addictions and other things. We know we're doing something that's not good for us. We know smoking is not good for us. Drinking is not good for us. Overeating, processed foods, sugar, whatever. We know it. What keeps us doing it? There's something that needs to change. So we have to really get into thinking things through and what's keeping us from letting things go. Brother Layla, can you talk some more about that?
Absolutely. You know, sometimes I was thinking of, sometimes when we're stuck in these situations, thinking about the title of this, what would make us want to change bad enough to actually go through the change? So sometimes you actually, I believe you actually need to feel enough pain about the situation, kind of along the lines of when you were talking about you kind of kneel down to jump up. But it's kind of just saying, you know, maybe moving in a different direction, dealing with possibly physical pain or the weight, the pain that comes from the weight that we feel on ourselves when we're down on something. A lot of times, you know, when we're experiencing this pain, is kind of the right away the instinct to avoid that pain or to try to avoid that pain. And I find in myself that comes many times from actually perceiving this pain in a very specific way. What I mean by that is, if I find that that I'm say I'm depressed about my job, I'm not making enough money, but I know I have to go back, and it's enough money to give me whatever.
Right.
So it's a minimum. It's working.
Right.
It's enough to keep me a slave ultimately.
Okay.
But I'm depressed that I, again, going back to that I, have not accomplished enough to make more money. Just kind of for a practical example. So I'm feeling this pain. Sometimes things need to happen, like people need to start beating up on you at your job. You know, what I mean by that is verbally, maybe the emotional abuse you get from being ridiculed by coworkers. Also, in the process of reaffirmation, like the brother that called in mentioned, when you're going through this process, you start seeing things clearer. You know, the brother makes a good point. You start seeing Urugu in everything. I think you've brought this up to me early in the process. Is that you start seeing it, and it's everywhere.
Yeah.
I'm not, I can't get past it. No matter what I do, I was going to jump into a tangent, but let me just stick on a point and say that when you start seeing things different, that adds to your pain because you're actually now getting your false reality, your fictional self, kind of taking some lashing, saying you're not in this reality that you kind of created for yourself.
Okay.
That pain sometimes is enough to move us.
Right.
Sometimes that pain is what's needed to move us because the something else that I had in my mind was that the body a lot of times works to maintain an equilibrium in itself. This is just some thought I had. But the body works to maintain this equilibrium. So if we get to a place when we start feeling comfortable there, then a lot of things will kind of follow to keep us there.
Okay, right.
Which means our actions will kind of follow. But then if there's not that comfort level, that throws that kind of the equilibrium off.
Right.
And then you have to make a move. You have to make a change. So I want to go a little bit more into what I mean by the fictional self, possibly, because when I talk about the pain, it may not be real clear what I mean by the fictional self. So here's what I mean. Sometimes the fictional self could represent as I don't have the money to go on a trip, and so that's going to keep me from doing everything that I might need to do. But that's the fictional self putting limits on you, and at that point, you're seeing obstacles that don't have to be standing in your way. Whereas the true self could step in, and I hope I'm clearing things up as opposed to muddying them more. But the true self could step in and deal with things more along the lines of saying, hey, am I along my mission statement of, am I living to be healthy, free, and me? Am I being me? If that's the case, then I don't have to deal with all those other anxieties about obstacles and things like that. As opposed to the fictional self who will just keep putting an infinite amount of obstacles in your path.
Okay.
To make things look a certain way.
Okay, so you're saying it's the fictional self will add to the problems by not allowing you to see clearly what's going on in your situation.
Absolutely.
Whereas your actual self, you, excuse me, you are able to sort out and say, okay, that's real, that's not real, that's me. That looks kind of like your root at the root of it somewhere. That's not me. You sort through it. Your fictional self will work against you doing that.
Absolutely. That's what I mean by that. Absolutely.
Okay. And going back to what you were saying about pain, I thought about something when we had Dr. Lewis on the addiction show part 2. And Dr. Lewis was an herbalist who shared with us, if anybody missed it, he started out many, many years ago coming on the back of a truck to Virginia from New York, and he was a crack addict. He talked to us about how he had his crack pipe with him, and he threw it off at some point on the New Jersey Turnpike. And when asked, what was it that got him to that point of throwing away the crack pipe and not picking it up again? That's an important piece. He quit at that point. He said his reasoning, his reward, I guess, if you will, or consequence, was he didn't want to go home to Virginia where his family was the situation, and be addicted to crack, and I guess face being ridiculed or alienated from his family, rejected, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah. And how sometimes that pain is big enough to make us change when, we can't just will ourselves up and, okay, stop doing this, it's bad for you, let's just move on. We need, it's like the pain has to be big enough to kill you. Like, people used to say, oh, it's not that bad, it's not going to kill you. Like, that's an actual imminent threat. And I thought about it, the alienation of being away from everybody around you. Like, being alienated is killing you off from everybody else's presence, kind of. It's destroying everyone else, or destroying you to everyone else. So you're just alone. And just how close that is to death for us being, not just, as they like to say, social animals. More than that, we're African people. We're community-oriented. The true us is community-oriented. The fictional us that they sell us is, it's all about you and I'ma do me and all of that. That's that fictional stuff. That's not really the true us, right? The healthy and free African is connected to other Africans. So when you're alienated or isolated, that is a pain almost to death, and something that could push you towards changing.
Yeah, absolutely. And if I could, I had a thought along the lines of what made. I remember that show, and what I took away from what Dr. Lewis was saying, it was almost as the question is, well, what can we say about what actually pushed him to take the action? And a lot of times, the authority, the model of authority has to be there. Something, a lot of times, discipline isn't a very clearly understood concept. Or a clearly understood word.
Right.
Discipline a lot of times is imposed on us from the outside, and I think a lot of times confusion comes from that coming out of childhood into adulthood. No one's sorting out that discipline also comes from outside. From inside. From the inside, where we discipline ourselves.
Right.
If we're helped to understand that there was also most likely some kind of authority that Dr. Lewis saw I believe it was brother or cousin, whoever the family member was, there must have been some kind of authority model that he saw him there. And even if it was just like you say, a healthy family member, that he was not.
Right.
And something recognized that authority.
Right.
So a lot of times from inside of us, we have to, let me say that the other way, a lot of times we have to realize that we as adults are responsible to impose, sounds a little strong, but that's what we're doing, imposing discipline on ourselves as an authority.
Right.
So that's something that it takes a lot of work too, because there's so many times in our day-to-day life that these Yuruku authority figures are placed in front of us and give us constant reminders, that constant affirmation that you are less than me. I'm telling you what to do. You can't have this in this society because I labeled you as that.
Right.
And those things become very kind of on a negative side of an authority in our lives.
Right.
But then speaking more to the fictional self, because we can turn that around and we can have authority for ourselves.
Right.
We can hold ourselves as an authority figure.
Right. And what I thought of, like you said, impose was a strong word, but when you said authority and discipline, I thought, as a kid, somebody got to make me do that. I'm not finna just clean my room. Somebody going to, at a certain level, a certain age, somebody going to have to just make me do that, because I'm not going to just come up with that idea and act upon it. No.
Right. And the famous, you can't make me do that.
Until you get beat into a pool, and now they've made you, and they've become an authority. And but what you're saying, it ties into real life, to society. Menial, meaningless white people, not the ones who boss at work, not the ones who have the power to enforce anything. But this society has led them to believe they can just tell any given African person, this is what you should be doing, and I'm the one who can tell you to do that, and they play like they can make you until you have to really pump them into their place, if that's the case. But, I understand what you're saying, and I think discipline is a good point I think we'll have to get to.
And if I'm not breaking up anything, I also wanted to, when I hear you say the thing about how these ordinary white people really, how is that so easy to believe? Kind of going in a different direction. What it reminds me of a lot is what Dr. Marcus talks about in terms of the white God that has been given to us.
Yes.
In this world, that has played a huge impact on how that even works. Sometimes you look at it as the Oz and behind the curtain pulling the strings.
Right.
How does it work that this individual who really poses no threat to me, no physical threat, can actually say something, and that's believable. So I think it's important to keep in mind that the only way these tactics, and I'll define them as tactics, actually sometimes play out is because of the impact of the God concept that has been handed out to society, be it just whatever it might be, whether it be a Christian concept or any other concept that might come from what is not truly African with a wholeness of spirit for life.
Right. And we weren't the only ones, obviously, who bought it hook, line, and sinker, who digested this white God concept. They have digested it and feel entitled to be the authority in what you should decide for your life, and impose themselves as they can tell you who's you. So they can make you think your fictional you is really you, the one who bows down to them in different situations, and then you have to go and feel some type of way inside yourself and feel bad and feel bullied because you make yourself believe, like they would have you believe that was you. So that was a fictional self also, because a true African stands up and is not emasculated, effeminized, whatever else, but maybe it's not a victim. We are all strong and able to stand up for ourselves, and we should. But, it's a tough battle. That's a battle in itself, because we were even having a conversation the other day about how if you could take some of the rage that's in black people and turn it in the right direction at who we're really mad at, how many people would actually act on it as it is? Because these people they're golden, they're God to us. Death comes with messing with a white person. Jail is gonna come if you take something out on a white person. Our lives are not so valuable. You can beat up a black person and get away with it, possibly, and not get any time, not get arrested, not have the cops called at all. If we're equating that to some kind of justice. Yeah, because it means nothing. Our lives in relation to theirs. In this fictional reality they would have us believe, and the fictional us that takes responsibility for these things does not belong either to us. And that's where we start to sort things out. What's real and what's fake? What's you and what's something posing as you trying to hurt you from the inside? It's a mold. It's infiltrated you, making you think it's you, but it's really just something put in you to hurt you from Urugu and not you. So yeah, sorting process is hard. It gets easier the more you do it, but you have to constantly do it. Like Brother Layla said, and like the brother said, constantly see your rugu, learn about your rugu, learn what makes us different, so you can start to see what to sort out and what's possibly working in you that's not you, not to bludgeon that to death. Yeah, I think it is too. And even when you were talking also, Brother Layla, about rewards, something I heard Dr. Marcus say before, and a lot of times he said that when you get yourself in a situation and you're trying to sort out, why am I doing this? What's leading me to this? What's causing me to hurt myself? Go as far as to say, what do I love about this? What is it I'm really getting from this? I'm hurting myself. Who else am I trying to lash out and hurt? Who's hurt me? You know, these are kind of just leader questions for you to ask yourself when you're trying to think things through and get to the bottom of what you're doing to yourself, or why you're down, or beating yourself down and keeping yourself down. Sometimes it's the case. And how you can start to deal with these issues. One question I have, Brother Layla, what does it matter? Because sometimes I know, having dealt with depression, I think, you know, so what if I lay in the bed and I sleep for 3 days straight and I don't comb my hair and I just stop talking to all my friends, and who cares? Who am I hurting? Why is it important for a person to change?
And that's a big question, because like we were talking earlier about the spirit of this society that we're now living in. And even the brother on the phone call brought up, being in this society is a weight. You know, it's it matters because we're each individually accountable to each other. And thinking from the spiritual perspective, I hope my voice is coming across clear through the radio. So from the spiritual perspective, that only makes sense because we're from an African perspective, we're each connected to life. We're each microcosms of the macrocosm, as I hear you say a lot. It matters because when I can actually look to a person that I have a perception of, if that perception is a positive one, I can actually use that as a practical means by which to lift myself up, or possibly keep myself from doing things that I don't want to do. If I could bring it back to illustrate what I'm talking about, if I bring it back to when we were talking about the addiction and what makes us do things that you talk about food, my addiction is slowing down or it's losing its power. I'm still addicted to cigarettes. Think about those addictions and the idea that at its root there's some kind of rejection there. So this may seem kind of convoluted, so I'll go back and say it matters because we're each individually accountable to each other.
Okay.
And if I can look at my brother or look at my sister, who I have a perspective of in reality, and then I go back to the idea that I have been rejected at some point and so used an addiction or some kind of substance to fill the void that came from the feeling of rejection, I can experience my brother or sister and experience their acceptance of me as kind of this spiritual rejuvenation, if you would, or healing, or, hey, if at the root of this, if I can understand at the root of this, that this was a rejection, here's an acceptance from something that's real. The spirit of falseness or fiction that comes from that rejection, possibly way back in my past, can be neutralized by this spirit of reality, or a fact, if you would. And so as we work our way through our lives, and we meet each other, we meet one another, we meet more people, different people come into our lives, we then need to understand that we're accountable to the African community for this sort of wholeness, because this rejuvenation process or healing is a we're constantly going to need that reaffirmation.
That is big. Let me just see if I got you. So you're saying, okay, rejection is at the core of our addiction. So let's say a rejection, let's say a person goes through is their dad leaves early on. And as a kid, you still take that as a rejection because that's your dad and he's not with you. So to some degree, it's perceived as a rejection because how come my dad doesn't want me? How come my dad's not here? You don't understand the parental things, or maybe he's in jail, or even if who knows, he's not there. That's a rejection. So you're saying we can build up addiction to have something that it falsely accepts us in a way. Like I've heard some people talk about overeating that way. Food never lets me down. Food always tastes good to me. It's always there. It doesn't talk back. It's not mean to me. It doesn't make fun of me. It's always there for me. It's some kind of feigned acceptance. And so I like this concept that it's important for us to be in touch with each other, to talk to each other, to in order to battle this fiction, this fictional. When we encounter some kind of rejection in life now, maybe that it's good to hold on to. I know Brother Laila. Brother Laila, he's trying. He's a good dude. He reads. He's extra smart. He's honest. You know, you're a real representation. You are really here, and you are really a person striving, and you don't reject me. Right. You accept me as a person. Me and you were cool. We get along. You don't talk down to me. You don't talk bad about me behind my back. As far as I know, I believe that I'm right when I say this.
It's true.
You know, so I can take your acceptance now, and in the moment where I'm dealing with my addiction, and I know it's tied to rejection, instead of feeding that rejection and fake acceptance by going to the addiction, I can say, let me call up Brother Lee to see what he's doing, and not even to be codependent necessarily, but just I know I'm accepted here. So I don't have to go to some fake acceptance. I have real acceptance to get through maybe a moment where, I want to go eat a candy bar. I don't need that. I need to be accepted, and I am being accepted.
And absolutely, yeah. And you know, it's not going further, but we talked about this earlier, the idea that all those things that you enumerated about what you think of me, those are all what build your perception of Brother Layla.
Right.
That literally, honestly has, and here's the power in it, here's the power in the connectedness that I see, in the connectedness with the spiritual realm, is understanding that all of those things that you talked about, you see me as, are your perception.
Right.
Meaning, what'll keep you away from codependence is understanding that that's your perception. So you could even skip the phone call and just have a thought and pray with that perception in your mind. It doesn't, and those things are just the understanding that you know you are accepted can bring you back to understanding and clearing out that spirit of fictional.
So it's just a real thought to fight fake thought.
Absolutely.
So
I believe that's how I see it.
Okay.
It's a neutralizing agent.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, a neutralizing agent, Brother Layla. Thanks, sister. But another thing, I think that helps that my perception of you is in reality, you are an honest person. And in getting to practical things that we can do to try to help us out, talking to people. We always talk about this on the Taste of the Southwest, how important it is to talk to each other, but to just be honest with each other. if I talk to you and you was always giving me the 52 fake out, just everything was just flowers and roses in your life, and oh yes, I'm more African today than I was yesterday, and I'm going to be more African tomorrow and forever. You know what I'm saying? That sounds great, but you're going to stumble, and I know that to be true because I stumble. So if we can just be honest with each other, we can help each other out because I don't have to see you as a liar now. That would affect my perception of using you as a spirit of reality.
Absolutely. It alters the relationship of even your perception and you. Okay? Yes, absolutely. And that's a big difference.
It is.
When we have to keep this in our mind. When you really think about it, I think you may have to do a lot of more thinking about it, and it does take some work.
Right, it does.
But I think it's clear enough to understand that that's how we're accountable to each other.
Yeah, I like that.
And it's not an absolute. Sorry, I just heard that sounds very absolute.
Mm-hmm.
That is a way that we are accountable to each other.
Right, and I agree with that. And I think that one of the most important things you can do in order to be honest with another person, you first have to be honest with yourself, like I said before. So you get to that point. It might take writing it out just to sort through your thoughts after, you're not sure if it's the fictional you and the true you. Write it out. And a lot of times it's easier to sort when you write something down anyway. And you could say, I hate waking up in the morning. I hate getting out of bed. I hate the covers being off of me. It's cold. Well, the fact of the matter is, once you write that out, you'll look and say, well, I kind of don't hate getting up in the morning. I kind of like that part of being alive. Like, that's actually not bad. That's how you sort things out. And you start to see, okay, something's trying to make me feel way worse than I really do. I hate waking up. Let's be real. And so you start to sort that way. Once you can get to a place where you're okay with, like, okay, I can pick up the phone now, because sometimes that's a struggle. Reaching out to another person is a struggle. We're trapped in the deadly concept of it's me against the world and so individualistic. So to be first honest with yourself, and then when you talk to that person on the phone or whatever the case may be, face to face, be real. If you even have to say the lie that you wrote down first, it feels like I hate getting up in the morning. I know that's not true, but that's just what it feels like. Because the fact of the matter is, we actually are so close to death when we're low like that. And I'm not talking all the time, but sometimes we just get in those bad ruts. And I know the way I've experienced this is I look at my situation and I say, I have no idea how I'm going to get out of this. I feel messed up. I'm not where I should be, whatever. And I can't see any way clear, period. I wish I could. I could make it seem like I can, but I don't even know how tomorrow's going to look any different from today. I'm not going to want to get out of bed tomorrow to be just funky fresh about it, And the point is that I'm making, when you talk to somebody, don't sugarcoat. That's not going to help you. Be real and exact about what you feel, bad as it may seem, because the fact of the matter is that person's going to respect you because the truth is they felt the same thing too. And they'll respect the fact that you were real, and you never know. They might come out and say, you know what, I was just feeling like that last week, and such happened, and now I feel a little bit better. Somebody said something to me, and you never know how much you can help each other. And you will never know if you never reach out. You never let somebody in and let them know what's really going on inside of you. And it's hard for people who have always painted, a paisley, velvet, pink picture, everything's just beautiful and always wonderful. But for those kind of people, your fall is extra hard and your get up is extra slow because you won't be real. And one other thing I'll say is, we talked about this and preparing for the show. We talked about this, and the title is Wanting Change Bad Enough to Change. The fact of the matter is, I think we're not even in control of when that actual point of change occurs. When the actual, okay, I feel better now. Throw open the curtains and life is beautiful and it's a brand new day and you feel great. We're not necessarily in control of when that's going to happen. We are in control of right now and being in the right now and real about the right now and sorting through it and seeing, okay, I hate that I'm here, but I am. Now you're being real. Now spirituality can have kind of a free reign in whatever's going on with you, because you just committed at least just being real about what's there and not turning your eye and looking like an ostrich, just keeping your head in the sand, and you're still in the same place, not moving anywhere.
And the spirituality, also that spirituality piece you bring up, is what can help us if we're in the now and being real.
Mm-hmm.
That spirituality piece can help us see what all the now encompasses, what it's all about.
Right.
See it more in its fullness.
Mm.
Because life, if we just talk about it as life,
mm-hmm.
Some people may be not used to hearing the word spirituality.
True.
But if, some Dr. Marcus pointed out to me, and it's like, hey, you can say God,
mm-hmm.
you can say spirit, you can say life.
Mm-hmm. Nature.
Mm-hmm. And the one is just that life stuck on me is that, hey, I am a life.
Mm-hmm.
Life includes everything. So that sticks out to me. But that to acknowledge that has to force tends to force a person to start seeing more of what reality is.
Okay.
And so you can see what it means that you're in this place that you don't want to be in.
Right. I kind of wanted to let people know, again, if you want to weigh in on the conversation, the number is 760-569-7676, 948-656# is the access code. And we really want you to call in and just let us know other things. We've thrown out a couple practical things. What other practical things can we do, and what works for you when you get to your low or your lowest point? And I'll give everybody, a few minutes to call in if you're going to call in. Maybe another 10 minutes or so, we'll wrap the show up. But, by the way, you had given me an analogy of that kind of what you're saying. We're part of a whole, something about an ocean and a bucket.
Yeah, absolutely. So the concept is probably not a new one, and I didn't make it up, but if you think about, when I think about life as the ocean, you look at the ocean's quite big.
Mm-hmm.
It's huge.
Mm-hmm.
And so you look at it as life. You take a bucket and you scoop some water out of the bucket,
mm-hmm.
and then you take the water and look at it. What you're looking at is life. It's part of life. It's no different than the whole of the ocean. It's now just in a different form.
Okay.
Being held by the bucket.
Right.
If you were to take a red dye or a blue dye or a black dye,
mm-hmm.
and pour it in the water,
mm-hmm.
that's in the bucket. You then pour the bucket back in the ocean.
Right.
The ocean's still the ocean.
Right.
But now this goes back into the accountability, how we're accountable to all of life.
Mm-hmm.
Now, any bucket, I hope this comes across clearly, but any bucket that you now from that point scoop out of that ocean has been impacted by that first bucket that was poured with dye.
Okay, so take black dye, got the ocean, take a bucket, scoop out some water from the ocean into the bucket. Put some black dye into that bucket. Pour the bucket of water back into the ocean. The ocean is now changed. So I'm the bucket. I just love that analogy so much because it doesn't seem like when you feel insignificant, when you don't see where you're connected to the whole, and that just kind of seems like a, what do you call it? Some intangible, just a concept in space.
Something that you can't connect with.
You can't relate to it, right? But your life, every moment of your life, is affecting everyone else that's alive. Your downtimes, your uptimes are affecting the rest of the African community. The way you get yourself out, or the way you reach out, or help somebody else out, or let somebody help you out in your situation is affecting all of us. And like I've heard, anything you do, the way I impact Brother Laila, or the way Brother Laila impacts me, not only affects me, it affects generations down the line, because he said something with the ocean and the bucket. It blew my mind. I'm going to tell you the truth, just the way he put it. and just the visual of it, now, you know, who's to say I can't pass that on to my child and it means something vast, and, you know, we affect more than what we know. And you can be a change to a person more than what you know by us making sure to maintain our relationship, to keep open the lines of communication between each other, not to isolate yourself. That's the easiest thing to do when you get depressed. But first thing, very, very, very baseline when you're depressed, one thing, if nothing else, open up the windows, try to get some fresh air and see some good sunlight. You'll be surprised that little bit how much you can feel. If you can get enough to get dressed and just get outside and get some fresh air, drink some water. These things can lift you up at least enough to reach out and talk to somebody and say, it was all I could do today to open the curtains and drink some water or to get outside. I just walked and sat on the stoop outside, but it was all I could do. I need somebody to talk to. You got to be real, and you have to be then the other person. You have to be available. You have to be available and sensitive to the fact that somebody wants to talk about something real and in touch enough to see sometimes people can't be put on hold. I'll say that. You know, sometimes it's really serious and we really need somebody that's there, and they don't make you feel like a burden. They don't make you feel like you're in the way. It's important.
Yeah. You know, when you mentioned that, when you said sometimes people can't be put on hold, it brings me back to understanding the stresses that we're experiencing in this society, in the spirit. In Yoruba, the word, I believe the term was the Utamaroho.
Go ahead, Dr.
Well, it was the way she broke down those terminologies, and she just went all
explain what that means, though. Utamaroho.
Absolutely. Well, and this is my understanding from reading the book, was that the Utamaroho, and she put it together, also back up a little bit, she put it together with Swahili, a combination of a couple words from Swahili. So an extract, an abstract, or an extract from Swahili to explain the spirit of the society around us.
Okay.
If I were to try to make it short. But to understand that we are sitting in this day and age and this time, the idea of being put on hold is such a reality because we have so many mediums, technological mediums. We just talk about technology alone. We have so many technological mediums. What I mean by that, first, there was the phone that was invented to be a way for one person to communicate with another. With this phone, there came text messages that were a way to interact and communicate with each other. Now we have whole, what are talked about as social networks. And I was just talking to a good friend of mine a while earlier today, and we were going through the conversation about Facebook and specifically all of these mediums that are coming between us and the humanness of a person are keeping that connection further and further divided. And so what ends up happening is we are further and further removed from being able to connect and being able to understand that we are accountable to this wholeness of spirit that we were extracted from as individuals, but we were not separated away from. Like, we cannot not be life.
Right.
So we are accountable to life.
So don't let the distractions, basically, that are in front of us make us think anything it changes about life because there's now Instagram and Facebook.
Exactly.
You know, you still have to relate to people and understand people.
That's all that matters to people.
That's true.
Your life's creations, that's all that really matters. Like, I brought up the Yoruba spirit, the Utamaro of this society, because I guess I was looking to add to that we're day to day sometimes not realizing that that's what's getting in the way. It's not that this is just life. Life just has happened. These are just the way things have gone. It's that there is an attack on the African way of life, which is connected to a spiritual wholeness.
Connected to everything.
Through that, and that's where I understand things.
That makes a lot of sense. Wow, that's. I kind of. I'm glad that we got to hear some callers. Is anyone else on the line before we wrap up the show? Sister Shabazz, anybody else? Call in?
Let's see. One person just dialed in. Let's see if they have a comment. 5469.
Okay.
You're live. 5469. Did you have a question or comment? All right, I guess that they're just listening in.
Okay. Well, I don't want to overemphasize every point again, but I just hope everybody will take into consideration, one, to be real about your downtime, to be serious enough to be honest with yourself, to sort through what's going on with you and sort out what's not really you but posing to be you, trying to hurt yourself, because you would never hurt you. Law of self-preservation. And then, reach out, be real, and understand that it matters to all of us, even if we don't know you personally, that you get up, that you reach out. And I will share my phone number. Of course, we offer free Africanization, a kind of walking through process for people who need help sorting out a little bit more, or understanding, our history, who we really are, who you really are, and how you can use that to win in your life, how you can overcome the obstacles that have put inside you to work against you. If you just need somebody to talk to, straight up, just somebody to hear you, listen to you, give you some kind of perspective, some kind of affirmation from a healthy African perspective, people who believe that you should live free to be healthy and to be you. So I'll give my number. Sister YaaYaa can be reached at 757-714-5222. Again, Sister YaaYaa, and also Dr. Marcus can be reached this way also, 757-714-5222, and Brother Law, so we can all connect, or whoever, it needs to be. But at any rate, we appreciate everybody for listening. Again, we won't be on next Sunday, but the following Sunday we'll be back with the Taste of the Southwest right here on War on the Horizon Radio. And we really appreciate everyone. Sister Shabazz, oh, snap.
Uh-oh.
Sister Shabazz, you weren't even going to jump in and say, what about my segment? Did you have anything you thought or you wanted to add, Sister Shabazz? I can't ever leave you out.
As far as what do I do when I'm down?
Sure, yeah, please.
Let's see. Well, I'd say the first thing that I do when I'm down would probably be to call my father, because he's the person in my family who I have the strongest connection with, where we have the same temperament, very much alike. So usually I'll talk to him. I like to go and be in nature, depending upon the time of year. I might go to the beach or to the lavender farm or an apple orchard or something, just to get out of the city and get some fresh air and, kind of gather my thoughts and get grounded a little bit. Usually after those two things, I'll come back and just throw myself into work, because I figure if my life isn't going right, at least I can do something that'll help somebody else until my life comes around to the way I want it to be. So I'll do that a lot. And when I first moved, I know you were talking about isolation a lot. One thing that I did, because I didn't know anybody in my city, really, and it was kind of lonely. So I would listen to War on the Horizon Radio a lot, because, the more you listen, the more you become like family, and everybody on War on the Horizon usually, pretty much has a funny personality, really upbeat. So if you feel alone and you're down, that's a resource that's available 24 hours a day. There's always somebody on there running their mouth about something. So I guess those are some of the things I think that I've done when things have not been going the way I want them to go.
That's real. That's real. And I'm glad you brought that up, because I have done that in trying to stay away from, like we said, technological distractions. If you like to look at it as a technological medium, is War on the Horizon Radio. If I can't get on a video or a lecture, if nobody's talking on War on the Horizon, you might just catch a good lecture and surprise yourself with how much you learn. So you're absolutely right there. And getting into nature, I love that, Sister Shabazz, because that's not only fresh air, but I can just imagine a lavender farm and how relaxing and peaceful that could be. I like that idea.
Yes, man. Only thing that could make it better is if there was more Black people there. So I would suggest everybody get out there and go to these places, so I'm not by myself.
I know that's right. Thank you, Sister Shabazz. So last check on any callers, if we have anybody on the line.
No, I think everybody's just listening today.
Okay, beautiful. We really appreciate everybody for listening. And again, not next Sunday, but the following Sunday we'll be back, 7 to 9 Eastern, on War on the Horizon Radio with the Taste of the Southwest. So thank you, Brother Laila.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a pleasure.
Absolutely. And thank you, Sister Shabazz, for everything, as always. Everybody have a good evening.
Yeah. United Front. We the vanguard, man. Hakoon, what up? Black. Yeah. I'm ready. Yo, you got my back? Yeah, brother, man, your back is got. Pass the Glock, let it fly. Lethal crack the shot. United Front. Yeah, these other boots ain't half as hot. And I be reppin' Black Power till the cats get dropped. We the devil shaking like an aftershock. And I've been working on my aim, running after cops. All black, check. We all black, check. Crack the fall flat, yeah. And small hats, yeah. You the master of deception. I'm the master of expression. With the power and the message. With a flow so impressive. And my number one suggestion, study supreme lesson. No shut, you know, child. Brothers, we mean business. White world massacre. This ain't Mama Africa. Check your neck, people. Cause this white man is Dracula. BB for holy, yeah. Crab heathens with no delay. Blasphemous